Shalom from the chilly Galilee. Let's just cut to the chase. For those of you who just want to know what I've decided for my household, I've decided that an extra lunar cycle is necessary for the barley to be mature enough to make a first fruits offering. For those of you who want more information, stay tuned and I'll go into detail exactly where the barley is at, how it was different this year from last year, and all those boring details that some people don't want to listen to and other people really want to know about. So to begin with, this year it was much colder than it was last year. Asher had made the shepherd that had made the statement that the reason he thought his ewes asked to be bred so quickly last year was because we didn't have any cold weather to speak of. They had begun to give birth starting on October 31st. This year he said they were at least 2 Gregorian weeks later in the birthing window for this year. And then in addition, we didn't have the type of rain this year that we had last year. Last year we had nice early rains, and then we'd have a long season of warming up into almost the 70s for some days. This year when the rain came and it brought cold. We had the roads into Jerusalem were closed for one day this week because of the snow. I've seen pictures of people ice skating on the plateaued elevations on the way to Hermon and the little ponds that exist out there, actually ice skating. We've got yesterday we had still a lot of overflowing rivers and streams well out of their banks. So we've had a lot of rain this year in a short amount of time, and the weather, it actually here where I'm at, Perea Elite, we actually had a night of freezing temperatures, and that's basically not the normal. It's 7 years, and this is the first that I've seen it. I've heard tales that it can frost sometimes, but this was not a frost. This was a freeze. So we had a year of very, very, very cold weather that is not normally the pattern for Israel. And I think that's important, but all of that does play into what happens with the barley. So this year's barley is presenting very differently than last year's barley, and it does affect the outcome of it. So basically what we have this year is that we have barley that is just before coming out of the body of the plant. I'll use a term that if you've been around the calendar world for a while, you'll know. The barley is just before coming out of the boot. In fact, the Bible uses the term aphil if it's a singular, aphilot if it's plural. So the barley, seor, is the seor is aphilot. Seor is the Hebrew word for barley. It's aphilot. And aphilot, we're going to see in the pictures that are coming up, is when you can literally open the body of the plant, and when you look in the center of it, you can literally find a grain head that is well on its way to coming out of the body of the plant, well out of its way to emerging, or as they say, out of the boot. So, but I'm going to show you some pictures and go over just a couple of them. There's not a lot to see, but go over a couple of them so that you understand exactly where the development is of the barley. This year so far, I've taken Shoshana with me in the field, and Shosh went with me yesterday, and you're going to see maybe a glimpse here or there of her in the background of some of the pictures. And so with that said, I want to show you that the domestic barley is basically in the same level of maturity as the wild barley. What you're going to see in the picture is a domestic field, and you're going to see, if you look very closely, you're going to see some of the blades of grass are long and bent over. They're arching downward. They're like, for lack of a better word, like they're bowing downward. But if you look really closely, you're going to see other of the leaves of the barley plant look like they're standing straight up. And the reason for that is as the barley head emerges from the plant, the awns or the sticks that are on the sides of the barley head, the awns will begin to hold that final barley leaf straight up in the air. And the next picture is simply us choosing one of those plants that has the final leaf sticking straight up in the air and opening it to look for that barley head that's getting ready to emerge. And by the way, I've mentioned this before, but you really can, or at least I can, run my hand, my fingers, squeeze that barley plant from the root down where it goes into the earth and run it all the way up to the top of the plant, and I can actually feel where that grain head is residing inside that plant. I really don't need to open it, but I'm opening these, and that's in the video, so you can see what I'm feeling on the inside of that plant. And finally, these next pictures are the wild barley, and we're just going to look at several pictures that show that the awns of the head of the barley are just beginning to peek out of the top of the plant. And then you'll see that there are a few as well where you can actually see quite a bit of the awns. So we're just before having, I would say we're a week to 10 days before having a condition where we can tell where the barley is and where the wheat is. And, you know, you can't really tell when it looks like grass unless you're opening them up and you're finding the grain head inside. But I would say in another week we can look out on a field and recognize the grain head of oats and the grain head of barley for what they are. So that's where we're at. The domestic barley and the wild barley are just about in the same stage of maturity. We don't use the wild barley. I'm just using the photos to show you exactly what I'm talking about. For the level of maturity is just when the hairs or the awns of the grain head start coming out of the top of the plant. And down inside that plant is a grain head that will continue to develop, and as it exits, it will continue to make a grain in the empty husk that it has as it exits out of the plant. So it just won't happen in 2 weeks. I just don't see it happening. We are just now we just started getting rain again today. So it's cooler here, and it's raining off and on in various locations across the country of Israel. So there's just not enough time between now and the week of unleavened for the barley to mature. I'd like to say thank you to all you who have given and supported this ministry. You know, we don't stop with just the barley. We watch the earth 24/7. After the barley, I'll be telling you about the wheat in time for Shavuot. I'll be telling you about the grapes. I'll be telling you about the figs. I'll be telling you about the pomegranates. I'll be telling you about the dates, and finally the olives. So if you appreciate this ministry and hearing from one who lives on the land and watches it year-round about the timing of Elohim's first fruits calendar, the 7 species, and would like to give, there's information in the description box below.